Hello, everyone. This is Steve, the gray-haired old chef, here with you with another video. I'm still using my cell phone, unfortunately. I haven't reached the point where I can afford fancy video equipment. I do plan on getting that in the future. But this video is about how to become a chef. This question has been asked to me many times throughout my career. Where do I begin? What do I do? And of course, my answer is always it depends. What's the situation you're in now? How young are you? How old are you? Whatever the case may be. Where are you starting from? First of all, I want to clear up the definition of a chef. The word chef is actually a French word, and it literally means chief in French. So it means you're the head of something. You could be the chef de gendarme in Paris, and that means the chief of police. Generally, when we think of a chef in the Western culture, we think of a chef de cuisine, which basically means chief of cooking or head of cooking. So it kind of dispels that Western trope that, for lack of a better word, that a chef is just somehow a higher elevated gourmet cook. Not necessarily. The chef is actually just the person in charge of the kitchen. Quite naturally, you would want that person to be a highly skilled cook, obviously, but not necessarily the case. And the skills for different chefs vary depending on the place where they're working. So, what kind of chef would you like to be? And these are interchangeable as well. A lot of times you can start off in one area of culinary arts and find yourself down the road working in another area. Um, probably the one that most people think about when they think of culinary arts being a chef is fine dining. Okay, that's kind of the gold standard, I would say, when you're thinking of that profession. Fine dining, it's a, you know you produce the highest quality, the great food, the gourmet dishes. You deal with Michelin star ratings, things like that. Um, the pay is good in those establishments, and you get good experience working with all kinds of ingredients that you would not normally work with in regular food service establishments. However, there are some cons associated with fine dining, and that is the positions are limited. Being a chef at a Michelin starred restaurant is kind of like trying to get a job as a quarterback for an NFL football team. Um, the positions are limited, very competitive, um, and also fine dining is economically sensitive. If we go into a recession, even wealthy people have to watch their pennies during tough economic times, and they may opt to go for lower cost options. And also, when you work in a fine dining restaurant, just like working for any exclusive restaurant, you're limited to the menu that you're working with in that restaurant. So you go to work somewhere else and you're expected to prepare a dish that you've never made before, um, or you've never had any practice with, then you're limited by that experience. Another area, and this is probably one that a lot, I would say probably most culinarians that go into it professionally and aspire to higher positions, and that is hotels and resorts. Okay, hotels, lots of people in them. They cater big events. There's conventions. Um, some even do outside catering. Um, just lots of good experience there. Some of the drawbacks to working in the hotel industry could be you're limited to certain areas. Okay, there's you know if you're near a major city or a area where there's a large tourist presence, then you're in a good position to find a job at a nice big hotel, Four Seasons, Wyndham, Marriott, places like that. Um, One of the other drawbacks is a lot of times the business is seasonal. Um, you might work in an area that does fantastic business during, say, the holiday season in the fall, and then it drops off after New Year's. And then uh, you might be working in an area that's more uh, dominant during the spring and summertime, let's say a golf resort or an island resort or something like that, where people tend to go for vacations during the spring and summer. Another thing about hotels is the hours can be crazy. You have to be there when you're needed to serve the guest, serve the customers, serve anybody that is a patron at that particular hotel or resort. However, hotels and resorts are usually very well paying. If you work for a large company, there's good benefits available as well: vacation, um, medical, dental, all of those things that you would normally associate with working in a big company. Um, Also, you get some great experience, a lot more variety in different cuisines in the hotel business. You might be working a charcoal grill um, by the golf course for luncheon, and turn around and do a banquet for a group of executives later on that evening. You might have a ethnic group, and you find yourself cooking kosher or cooking halal for a certain group, and you get experience in that area. Um, and also, the hotels aren't as competitive between positions. Usually, you can move up through the hotel chains fair. I wouldn't say rapidly, but if you develop the skills and you do well, you can move up in the hotel business. Um, so there is career growth. A lot of executive chefs earn that title through the hotels. Another area, and this is one that maybe you not wouldn't necessarily have the title chef. Maybe some places do, some places don't. You might be the kitchen manager or culinary manager or something of that nature, and or even the service manager or the actual restaurant manager. That would be in casual dining. Casual dining. When you think of casual dining, usually you're thinking about those chains that you see scattered around outside your local mall, like your Chili's and your Olive Garden, places like that. The pros and the one of the pros in casual dining is consistency. All right, the menus are structured, the recipes are standardized. You're making the same thing every day. You're basically in a quality control position. You just want to make sure that you're consistently putting out the product with the expectations of the company that you work for. Um, Also, in a casual dining environment, there's also camaraderie. You work with the same people day in, day out, every day. You develop that rapport with each other. I don't want to use that corporate lame speak about being like family, but you do get to know each other, and you know what each other's capable of. You know each other's strengths and weaknesses, and you can put that together and build a cohesive team. Also, the hours are more consistent. You're either evening shift or day shift, or if you have a place that serves breakfast, you might have three shifts, or maybe two shifts with a swing shift in between. You get it. Um, Not all casual dining is in a corporate environment. There are mom and pop shops. Some of those things still apply: the consistency, the camaraderie. Some of the drawbacks to mom and pop shops is they don't necessarily have the resources that the corporate environment does. So your pay is most likely to be lower. Even in the corporate environment, you're not going to make as much as you would in hotels or fine dining, but you can count on pretty consistent employment, pretty consistent business year round. And there might be some seasonal rushes and things of that nature, but you pretty much know what to expect from one week to the next. One of the another cons is that casual dining is competitive. Usually, these places are located all right next to each other. So you have the Olive Garden, the Chili's, the Cheddar's, the what have you, the Texas Roadhouse, all in a line on the same road, usually on a service road on a highway somewhere, and they're competing for the same customers. Um, Also, casual dining, you're expected to get orders out in a faster um, time. It's almost like fast food. So it's very physical. You're going to be working, you're going to be on your feet, you're going to be hustling. Um, probably pretty good experience if you're young and getting started, because you're going to need that hustle even later on if you get into a fine dining or a hotel environment. Nobody likes somebody just dragging and holding the team back, no matter where you are. Um, so, and lastly, I'm sorry, my phone is shaking all over the place here. I think my next thing I'm going to get is a tripod so I can hold this thing still and do this. Anyway, the last thing I want to cover is institutional cooking. All right, institutional, you're thinking about places where you're serving people who aren't necessarily, well, I say walk in paying customers. These are places where um, people may or may not have a choice, but you want to deliver the best results that you can for them. All right, we're talking about schools, primarily colleges. Um, you don't see a lot of chefs working in public schools. There are contract organizations such as Southwest Food Service Excellence, Sodexo, Aramark, who do work in some public schools, and they do hire some chefs. But for the most part, you're looking at colleges. College campuses do use chefs in their establishments. They run cafeterias, concessions, catering, things like that. Also, uh, healthcare. All right, healthcare. You're looking into hospitals. Okay. The little thing about hospitals is you have to get used to cooking for people with various dietary restrictions, various conditions. May have to modify textures of food so that certain people with certain conditions can actually eat them, swallow them, and digest them. Um, and also nursing homes. I mean, it is no secret. We all know who the baby boomers are. Well, guess what? The youngest of the baby boomers are a year older than I am. The oldest of the baby boomers are about 23, 24 years older than I am. So we're talking about a population that's aging. They're not getting any younger. They're not getting any healthier. So sooner or later, we're looking at a huge number of people, 60 some odd million last time I checked, that are going to be going into some sort of long term care, whether it's in a nursing home, retirement home, long term care facility, or even home health care in the not too distant future. So if you're looking for something with a future, that is one place to look. Um, Also, in institutional food service, um, the benefits are fantastic. I mean, healthcare, especially, I think has some of the best benefit packages of any industry out there. Uh, Paid time off, sick pay, paid vacation, health, dental, um, even uh, tuition assistance, tuition reimbursement. I currently have received my certification as a certified dietary manager. I had to take a class through a university to achieve that, and that is getting reimbursed. My expenses are getting reimbursed for that. So that's pretty awesome. Um, and also, the hours are more structured. Typically, you find yourself working the same shift every day, sometimes even the same days a week. Where I'm currently working, it's 4 days on, 2 days off, and we keep cycling in that cycle. And you know, and of course, another pro in working in healthcare food service specifically is you learn a lot about nutrition. You learn how to modify foods, but try to still make them palatable, tasty for people who have difficulty chewing, difficulty swallowing, or can't have salt, or can't have too much fat, or they're diabetic, and we have to watch how much carbohydrates they eat. It's oops, sorry, almost dropped it there. Gotta get used to this. Of course, some of the cons to working institutional food service is the number one is limited creativity. There's not a lot of room to get creative as a chef when you work in the institutional food service industry. Recipes are standardized. A lot of times, companies create menus and recipes. If there's any level of creativity at all, it's in the garnishing and presentation, and also sometimes, such as in the place where I work, we have an alternative to the main item available because we run a static or a cyclical menu where we cook something different every day, but it's the same thing for everybody. But there is also an alternative available, and that's where we can get creative and come up with something. Um, and something that it's kind of a con, but maybe doesn't turn everybody off, is an institutional food service. You're behind the scenes. Generally, you don't get seen by the people you're serving all that much. Now, I do make a point to go out in the dining room and visit residents and just ask them general questions, what they liked about the food, what they would like different. I just want to get some feedback, but generally, you're behind the scenes. You're nobody really knows you there. One thing in institutional food service that's hard to overcome is tight budgets. All right. Um, Institutions don't calculate food cost as a percentage of sales. All right. It's a different ball game. It's usually a certain amount budgeted for every individual that you are serving. Um, and also, there's the demands of mass production. Depending on the size of the facility, I mean, I typically cook for about 80 people, twice, three times a day. Some places you might have to cook for several hundred, even up to maybe 1,000, depending on the size of the facility, or even more. It's insane. I mean, I was an army cook, and I remember cooking for 1,200 troops. Of course, there was a whole massive group of us back in there cooking, so it wasn't quite so bad. You might have been responsible for one or two products. So, anyway, I'm going to kind of go into, you know, you want to talk about becoming chef. One thing I would ask you is to think about your future. All right, think about today. However old you are, or however young you are, bear this in mind. You are right now the youngest that you are ever going to be. All right. So thinking about that as you're getting older, all right, I'm 60 years old, right? I'm still kicking. I think I got another good 10 years left in me, unless something catastrophic happens. Um, where do you want to be 10 years from now, 20 years, 30 years from now, when you're starting to get a little stiff, starting to get a little sore, working 12, 15 hours a day on your feet, it just kills you. When you're 20, 25 years old, yeah, you're fine. You might get a little sore. You go home and relax for a little bit. It kind of goes away. But as we get older, excuse me, that becomes less of a possibility. I am so sorry. I had to pause for a second to kind of clear some of that old age problem out of my chest. Anyway, um, where did I leave off here? What do you want to be saying? Okay. Remember, you're not getting any younger, so think about your future. You're going to want to eventually move up into a position where it becomes more mental and less physical. So um, bear that in mind. Also, think about money. All right. The best pay is in those positions that I was speaking of earlier, where it becomes more mental and less physical. Um, I remember one time when I was working as a manager in a restaurant, and I had an employee ask me, it's like, why do y'all get paid so much money as managers when we do all the work? And I said, it's simple. We get paid to put up with all the bullshit. All right. When you're an employee, you don't have to deal with employees coming at you with all their problems, customers going, yeah, da, 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 and also you're dealing with upper management coming down on you because you're not meeting this goal, or you're not meeting that goal, or you got a customer complaint on the 800 line because somebody did this. It's just a constant battle. So that's why managers get paid. They get paid to put up with the bullshit. All right. They don't get paid for hard work. It's more mental than physical. So if you want that money, be prepared to put up with the bullshit. So that's all I can say about that. Another thing I can say when you're thinking about the future is to be flexible. All right. Just because you start out in one area doesn't necessarily mean that you have to end up there. All right. You tried fine dining for a while. Okay, you got some good experience. You got to work with some ingredients whose names you can barely pronounce. And you got some great plating ideas, but you find out it's extremely competitive. You want to move on. So You might think of another industry. Go into that casual dining or that hotel or something. All right. Sorry, I'm going through my notes here. Like I said earlier, I'm browsing through my notes for this one. Another thing is to always be a student. I don't care how much any cook, any chef knows about cooking, even Gordon Ramsay or Jacques Pepin or Wolfgang Puck. There's always room to learn because, I mean, let's face it, we live on a planet with billions and billions of people who have different types of cuisine, different trends, different tastes, and trends change. I remember in the 1980s when fajitas were the big craze. Every restaurant was serving fajitas on sizzling skillets going through the dining room. Don't really see that much anymore. All right, changing technology. When I was starting out, the concept of sous vide was a very new concept. You really didn't see it except maybe in the finest, trendiest establishments. So, be flexible. And next thing I can say is to take care of your resume. If you're looking at being a chef, you want to make sure it looks good on paper. And I'll go into experience, schools, training, things like that. Um, but take care of your resume. These days, most chefs don't stay on the same job for a very long time. I mean, I'm just kind of guessing here, but based on what I've seen, my experience, most cooks, most chefs change jobs less than 5 years. Every 3 to 5 years, they're going somewhere else. So the saying is, there sometimes you have to move out to move up. In today's corporate culture, in today's business culture, they're not into giving big raises as you stay with the company. So sometimes you have to go somewhere else to get yourself a raise. I mean, that's not the way it used to be, but it's the way it is now. That's the reality of it. So when you're asking me what I need to do to become a chef, the answer is it depends. Where are you now? Okay, are you still in school and you want to get started on this right out of high school, or maybe even learn a little bit while you're in high school? Maybe you've been in the industry for a while and you want to kind of get your way up to where you're not working that fry station day after day or working that prep day after day and work your way up through the system. Or, you know, you maybe want to run your own kitchen, run your own restaurant one day. Where are you now, and what is your plan to get there in the future? Now, in future videos in this series, and I promise I'm going to try to make better videos with my phone not shaking around so much, but I'm going to talk about the various ways that people get culinary training, and whether it's culinary school, working way up through the bottom, even a couple of ways that people don't even really talk about, but are actually very good ways that people have had great success in this field. So, um, please, if you want to keep up with this series, I want to try to make a video every week adding to it. If you have any comments, any suggestions, any questions, please drop a comment below and subscribe to my channel, ring the notification bell so you can get updated on the latest videos. And I look forward to hearing from you soon.